Have you ever paused, truly paused, amidst the clamor of your daily existence, to notice the almost imperceptible tension that hums beneath the surface of your days? It's a subtle, pervasive strain, a quiet bracing against the perceived unpredictability of the world, born from an unceasing, often unconscious effort to steer the intricate course of your life. We strive, we push, we meticulously plan, all in an earnest attempt to bend reality to our will, to secure desired outcomes, to sidestep potential discomfort or failure. We become the tireless architects of elaborate futures in our minds, and then exhaust ourselves in the often frustrating endeavor to construct them brick by painstaking brick, frequently finding ourselves working against the inherent grain of how things naturally wish to unfold. This relentless pursuit of control, this deeply ingrained belief that we must constantly intervene, manage, and direct every facet of our experience, becomes a hidden yet potent source of fatigue, a quiet, continuous drain on our precious vitality and joy. But what if there existed an alternative way? An approach to life and its myriad challenges rooted not in forceful intervention or anxious management, but in a kind of skillful, intelligent responsiveness. Ancient Chinese philosophy, particularly the profound school of Taoism, offers precisely such a path through the elegant concept of Wu Wei. Frequently translated, perhaps somewhat inadequately, as non-action or effortless action, Wu Wei is often misunderstood in the pragmatic, action-oriented West as mere passivity, resignation, or a kind of detached indifference. Yet, at its heart, it is anything but. Wu Wei is a profound wisdom, a dynamic state of being that operates in elegant accord with the Tao, that fundamental, unnameable, and ultimately mysterious principle that is the natural order, the intrinsic rhythm, and the spontaneous flow of the universe. Wu Wei is the sophisticated art of acting in seamless harmony with this universal flow, much like a seasoned boatman who, rather than rowing frantically and exhaustingly against a powerful, unseen current, intelligently adjusts his sails to harness the invisible power of the wind and the water's own inherent momentum. It's about cultivating the capacity to discern the underlying currents in any given situation, be it a personal dilemma, a creative endeavor, or an interpersonal dynamic, and then moving with them, thereby achieving significant and meaningful things with a remarkable sense of ease, grace, and naturalness. Imagine, for a moment, a master calligrapher at work. Her brush does not fight the paper, nor does she attempt to violently force the ink into predetermined shapes. Instead, there's an almost palpable, effortless grace to her movements, a sensitive yielding to the unique qualities of her tools, the texture of the paper, the viscosity of the ink, and, crucially, to the inspiration that arises within the moment. The resulting artwork is potent and alive, not because of the application of brute force or rigid control, but because of her profound attunement to all elements involved. This is a beautiful illustration of Wu Wei in practice. It is not, therefore, about not doing, but about how one does, about the quality of presence and awareness one brings to any action. It's about developing the discernment to recognize when to act decisively, and when to allow events to unfold, when to exert focused effort, and when to step back and permit the inherent, often surprising order of things to emerge in its own time and manner. This involves a letting go of the ego's desire to be the sole director of the show. The Tao, this elusive way or path that Wu Wei seeks to align with, is not a rigid set of doctrines to be intellectually learned or a series of commandments to be blindly followed, but rather an all-pervasive intelligence to be subtly perceived, an invisible energy to be intuitively felt. Lao Tzu, the ancient sage traditionally credited with authoring the foundational Tao Te Ching, famously and enigmatically stated, "The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao." This is because the Tao is fundamentally experiential, akin to the taste of water. You come to know it not through elaborate descriptions or complex theories, but by the direct, intimate act of drinking. It is the unseen, silent intelligence that miraculously guides the silent growth of a tiny seed into a mighty, sprawling tree, that meticulously orchestrates the celestial dance of planets and stars across vast cosmic distances, and that quietly, efficiently heals a wound on the body without conscious intervention. our persistent human attempts to overmanage, to impose our limited human understanding and often rigid fear-based plans onto this vast, flowing, and infinitely complex intelligence, frequently create the very obstacles, anxieties, and frustrations we so desperately seek to avoid. It was the uniquely gifted philosopher and writer, Alan Watts, who played a pivotal role in introducing these subtle and profound Eastern concepts to the often skeptical and materially focused Western psyche. He possessed an unparalleled gift for translating the nuanced wisdom of Taoism and Zen Buddhism into a language and framework that resonated deeply with a culture increasingly feeling the profound strain of its own relentless, often frantic drive for external progress, perpetual achievement, and absolute control. Watts keenly observed that the Western mind frequently approaches life as if it were a complex problem to be solved, a formidable battle to be won, or a challenging project to be meticulously managed. He highlighted with both wit and compassion how this inherently adversarial stance places us in a state of constant, exhausting conflict with the natural, spontaneous unfolding of events, leading inevitably to pervasive anxiety, a sense of alienation from ourselves and the world, and a chronic feeling of being out of sync. Watts often employed the metaphor of water. It is yielding, adaptable, and seemingly soft, yet over time, it can wear away the hardest stone. Water doesn't strive or resist. It simply flows, effortlessly finding the path of least resistance. And in doing so, it powerfully and inexorably shapes the landscape. He suggested with gentle persuasion that human beings too could learn to live with this kind of intelligent suppleness, this fluid responsiveness. He spoke of life not as a journey with a fixed destination, but as a piece of music, where the point is not to get to the end, but to enjoy the dance of each note along the way. Consider, with genuine honesty, the sheer quantity of energy you expend on a daily basis, trying to maintain a certain meticulously crafted image, to meet an endless barrage of expectations. Those you unconsciously place upon yourself, and those you perceive, accurately or not, as emanating from others. Think of the immense mental and emotional efforts invested in worrying about uncertain future possibilities or in endlessly ruminating over past mistakes and perceived shortcomings, all of which are ultimately futile attempts to control what is inherently uncontrollable or what has already irretrievably passed. This, as Watts so eloquently pointed out, is the source of much of our self-inflicted friction, the psychic wear and tear that inevitably comes from pushing relentlessly against the great river of life instead of learning to skillfully navigate its ever-changing currents. We are often conditioned from a very early age, through our education systems and societal narratives, that success and worthiness come primarily from aggressive, often relentless effort, from making things happen through sheer force of will. While focused effort and diligent action are undeniably important and often necessary, the quality and timing of that effort matter profoundly. Is it a tense, anxious, and resistant striving, fueled by fear and a desperate need for control? Or is it a focused, relaxed, and responsive application of energy that is intuitively in tune with the authentic needs and inherent possibilities of the present moment? The guiding principle of Wu Wei invites us to consciously cultivate a different, more subtle kind of intelligence, an intuitive awareness, a capacity for deep listening to both our inner landscape and the outer environment. It encourages us to become keen, patient observers of life's manifold rhythms and cycles, both within our own psychophysical being and in the world around us. It's about learning to sense the right timing, that subtle energetic readiness, to know when a situation is truly ripe for action, much like an experienced farmer instinctively knows the precise, optimal moment to harvest her crops. Attempting to force a plant to grow faster through excessive intervention will only damage it or yield an inferior result. Similarly, trying to unduly rush complex processes in our lives, be it the organic unfolding of a meaningful relationship, the delicate gestation of a creative project, or the gradual, often non-linear path of personal growth and healing, frequently leads to subpar outcomes, unnecessary complications, and immense avoidable frustration. Applying the wisdom of Wu Wei in our modern, hyper-stimulated, and relentlessly fast-paced lives might initially seem like a daunting paradox. How can one possibly embody effortless action, when deadlines loom large, notifications constantly demand attention, and the pressures of daily life feel overwhelming? This is precisely where the profound subtlety and practical genius of the concept shine most brightly. It doesn't mean advocating for slacking off, abandoning responsibilities, or becoming apathetic or irresponsible. Instead, it means learning to approach our tasks and challenges from a place of calm centeredness, tackling difficulties without the compounding burden of internal resistance, self-criticism, or excessive anxiety. It means doing what genuinely needs to be done, fulfilling our commitments with integrity, but without the additional energy-draining layer of frantic worry, self-recrimination for perceived imperfections, or the desperate, often counterproductive, need to control every single variable and outcome. Think about those moments in your life where you've experienced a genuine state of flow, perhaps while deeply engrossed in playing a sport you love, fully absorbed in a creative hobby that captivates your imagination, lost in the rhythm of playing a musical instrument, or even during a profound, open-hearted conversation where words seem to emerge effortlessly. In those precious moments, your actions seem to unfold spontaneously, effectively, and almost without conscious forced effort. You are completely absorbed, intensely present, and responding intuitively and skillfully to the unfolding situation. This is the very essence of Wu Wei and lived experience. It is about consciously cultivating this state of responsive, engaged presence more consistently and intentionally across all the diverse areas of our lives, from the mundane to the momentous. One practical way to begin this cultivation is by consciously practicing the art of the pause, the mindful breath. Before automatically reacting to a challenging email that triggers an emotional response, before impulsively jumping into a solution for a complex problem that requires deeper consideration, before reflexively committing to yet another demand on your already stretched time and energy. Pause, take a conscious breath or several. Create even a small, internal space between stimulus and response. In that precious, often brief space, you can observe the situation with significantly greater clarity, notice your own internal emotional and cognitive state with more detachment, and begin to sense the most appropriate, harmonious, and least forceful way to proceed. Ask yourself, is this action truly necessary right now? Is it arising from a place of genuine wisdom and clarity, or is it being driven by underlying fear, ingrained habit, or egoic defensiveness? Another vital aspect of embodying Wu Wei is learning to patiently and honestly distinguish between what you can genuinely influence through wise action and what lies largely or entirely beyond your direct control. So much of our chronic stress, anxiety, and frustration stems from our persistent, often unconscious efforts to manage the unmanageable. Other people's thoughts, feelings, and choices, unpredictable global events, the relentless passage of time, or the final outcome of our best efforts. Wu Wei teaches the profound wisdom of focusing our precious energy and attention where it can have a genuine, constructive impact and, equally importantly, learning to accept with grace, equanimity, and even a sense of curious openness those things that lie beyond our individual sphere of control. This is not a passive resignation or a mark of weakness. Rather, it's a highly intelligent and strategic allocation of our finite life energy, freeing us from futile battles and allowing us to engage more effectively where our actions can truly make a difference. This acceptance also involves acknowledging that failure is often a harsh judgment imposed on a natural process of learning and redirection. Sometimes the path not taken, or the unsuccessful venture, is precisely what guides us to a more suitable direction. Furthermore, Wu Wei involves a deep and abiding trust in the process, both the processes within ourselves and the larger processes of life. When you plant a seed, you don't anxiously dig it up every day to check if it's growing, as this would only hinder its development. You provide the right conditions, fertile soil, adequate water, appropriate sunlight, and then you fundamentally trust the natural, inherent process of growth to unfold in its own time. Similarly, in our various personal and professional endeavors, we can do our part with diligence, care, and focused intention, and then consciously allow space for things to develop organically, for solutions to emerge, sometimes in ways our rational minds could never have predicted or engineered. This requires genuine patience, a letting go of rigid timetables, and a courageous willingness to relinquish the pervasive illusion that we are, or ever could be, the sole orchestrators of results. This trust extends to our own inner resources, our intuition, our resilience, our capacity to learn and adapt. Alan Watts often spoke with great insight about the wisdom of insecurity. Our constant societal and personal attempts to secure the future, to eliminate all uncertainty and risk, are ultimately futile endeavors and, paradoxically, major sources of anxiety. Life, by its very nature, is inherently uncertain, dynamic, and ever-changing. Wu Wei encourages us to become more comfortable, more at ease with this fundamental uncertainty, to begin to see it not merely as a threat to be defended against, but as a vast, open field of infinite possibilities and potential learning. When we are not rigidly attached to a specific predetermined outcome or a fixed, unyielding plan, we become more adaptable, more resilient, more creative, and more open to the surprising, often serendipitous opportunities and insights that life may present when we least expect them. This profound journey into understanding and embodying Wu Wei is as much an unlearning as it is a learning. It is a gradual, often challenging, unlearning of deeply ingrained habits of overthinking, over-controlling, over-striving, and excessive self-criticism. It's about consciously peeling back the multiple layers of societal and familial conditioning that may have taught us that our worth is inextricably tied to how much we struggle, how much we visibly achieve through forceful effort, or how perfectly we can manage appearances. Instead, Wu Wei points towards a deeper, more sustainable kind of effectiveness, a more harmonious and joyful way of living and acting, one that arises organically from a place of inner alignment, intuitive wisdom, and profound harmony with the greater, intricate dance of existence. Imagine the profound relief, the deep exhalation of finally letting go of the heavy oars when you realize, with a sense of dawning clarity, that the underlying current of life is already carrying you with its own inscrutable wisdom towards where you truly need to go, perhaps to a destination far more wondrous, fulfilling, and authentically aligned with your deepest self than any you could have meticulously plotted on your own limited map. This doesn't imply drifting aimlessly or abdicating responsibility. Far from it. It means becoming a more skillful, perceptive, and responsive navigator of your life, using your intelligence, your intuition, your skills, and your efforts wisely and judiciously, in elegant concert with the prevailing winds and currents, rather than in constant, exhausting opposition to them. It is the liberating discovery that true, enduring strength lies not in perpetual battle or rigid resistance, but in profound, intelligent, and open-hearted cooperation with the very essence of life itself. This is the quiet, unassuming power, the deeply liberating wisdom that Wu Wei offers to each of us. As you continue to move through the tapestry of your days, begin to gently and without judgment, observe the subtle and not so subtle ways in which you might be forcing things. In your work, in your relationships, in your personal aspirations, in your own mind. Where do you feel the most pronounced resistance, the most significant internal friction, the greatest sense of strain? What might happen if, in one small, manageable area of your life, you experimented with a little less push, a little more allowing, a little more patient observation, a little more trust in the unfolding moment and your own capacity to meet it? The path of Wu Wei is not typically about a grand, sudden, dramatic transformation, but rather a series of gentle, conscious shifts in perspective, attitude, and action that, cultivated consistently over time, can lead to a profoundly more peaceful, effective, and authentically fulfilling way of being in and with the world. Thanks for watching. If this resonated, please like this video and subscribe to stay updated. I look forward to continuing this journey with you. Until next time, take care and be present.